Welcome to Have You Read Any Good Books? I'm Mavis Applewater. And for author chat today, joining us is Melissa Good. Long time no see. How is life in
Long time no
Florida?
see.
Yeah,
Well, it's Florida,
it's Florida.
you know.
Yeah. Melissa is,
It's a little bit calmer up here in Central Florida than it was in South Florida where I used to live. So
oh,
I'm
right,
thankful
right.
for
Uh, so much going on these days.
that. Mhm.
Uh, Melissa is the author of, was it 16 books? There's
Yeah, I
what,
guess
I guess. Yeah, you're like me. I don't know.
there's a lot.
I wrote stuff. I did. Dar and Kerry are you're
Mhm.
best known for,
Yes.
which Tropical Storm, behind me, below the Beatles, where we put everything fun in my office.
Yep.
Um, Lots of intrigue, mystery, and of course romance with those two. I remember when this I started reading it online. That's how you started. We just did a whole
Yep.
salute to the Warrior Princess fan fiction, and that is
Mhm.
where you got your start. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and you opened a lot of doors because you got an offer, which has happened before, but most fan fiction, like Paramount, said no to people. Like, don't do that. Star Trek is ours. Don't do that. You can't publish it. But you talked to Rob, and he said yes.
Rob, that whole entire team was very accepting of
Hmm.
fan fiction, which is not, I'm sorry, I'm just getting over a cold, which is
Oh,
that is not entirely common. I think nowadays it's more common because I think some of the up and coming studios and stuff have realized they're like, hey, this is free publicity. It's
right.
great. You get a fan base. It lets you, have people gather. They buy merch. I mean, they saw from
Merch.
Xena, and Buffy, and so they like, oh, hey, this is not a bad thing. It's okay. But at that time, there were a lot of people were very protective of their IP, and they did not want to
Yeah.
see it. There were a lot of sites that were shut down and things. But Rob wasn't like that. I think he found it intriguing,
He
right?
did.
Because that wasn't really part of his original plan. And then all of a sudden to have this thing sort of take off in a weird direction, I think sort of intrigued him more than anything else.
Well, it's and it just blew the doors open for LGBT publishing too.
It did. You know, I'm a science fiction fan, right? So I remember my first science fiction convention I went to, and it was a tiny little convention in a tiny little Holiday Inn near my original house in South Florida with maybe one small room, two tables, you know, just people talking about the angle of Spock's ears. I mean, it was a typical that kind of science fiction convention. But for the first time, I realized when I walked in, because I always thought I was extremely strange because I would read all the science fiction books in the library and I was thinking about space and I was thinking about science, and that was like not really normal. And then I walked into that convention, I realized, oh wow, there's a community here.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's
you
what that's what Xena did for gay women.
It really did. And I remember the early Bard cons. That's where I met you. And I did two panels recently with authors that got their start, and we called it I Owe It All to the Warrior Princess and her sassy little sidekick.
Well, I
But
think I think because that was such a popular thing, and then you walk into a Xena convention, and if you're a gay woman, you're just like, holy crap.
I am home.
Yes, you have instant community. You walked in
Mhm.
there like coming home to a lot of people. So, and it also became very widely known because it was a popular property, right? So then it sort of tied those two things together, and it made people and of course the internet was just becoming a thing at that point. And then when people started talking about the internet, and that of course blew up with the net forum and everything like that, and people realized there's an audience for this. That
I,
material has not.
the internet. Now, when I first started online and all that, I'm a novice, but this is your thing. IT is your thing. And
It is.
I remember reading the early Darren Cares and
Mhm.
the running joke, and I will never forget this one about the woman whose coffee cup holder was broken with the tower because that's where her CD
CD
came.
tray.
Even I knew what went there, But
A
that,
lot of stuff, a lot of stuff that came into those stories was just because I did technical support. It was my one of my first jobs in the IT trade. So I did a lot of technical support, and the support I did was a lot of mom and pop travel agencies,
hmm,
right? For people who were novices with computers and didn't really understand. Sorry,
oh,
hang on.
is that you?
It is me. I am the technical manager on call today, and I'm being paged to a bridge. So just give me a minute so I can
No
find out what
worries.
page to.
I'm going to pause, folks, and
Page
we'll come
to.
back to Melissa in a moment. And with them, okay, we're back. And
Mhm.
we were just talking about computers and IT. So many things, though, like in Dar's house that were then early on, like, are commonplace now. That was like amazing. Like Alexa now is like what she used to verbally, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's coming. And it did.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it did.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, when you're in technology, it's normal to you, right? So all the things that you write about, because that when I decided to do that particular type of story, one of the things was because it was easy for me because number one, I didn't have to invent. There was not a lot of world building because it's the world that I live in, and
Hmm.
it was very easy to just sort of bring in pieces of my daily work to the stories, which sometimes they're funny. Sometimes they're not they're funny in a tragic way, but also a lot of things are just that is what life is when you are in technology, you
Right.
know, and and um, I
And
think
it
sorry,
all
go ahead.
started Tropical Storm, where
Mhm.
Dar and Kerry meet and hit it
Uh-huh.
off, and intrigue happens, and a lot of stuff happens in the books. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Just they're fabulous. And they've just started going out on audio in the last few months, right?
yeah. They
Recently.
did they did the first one, and then Patty came back and said that they were interested in the next couple. So yeah, so I think there's three. I think there's three out now
I think
that
you're
are
right.
audible. And I think they're great. People have really liked the reader for the audiobooks, and I think they're a good reader. I do listen to some audiobooks, some mysteries and things like that,
Right.
and it kind of really makes a difference, right?
Well,
It
yeah,
can
yeah. If you have
really
someone you,
right if you listen to audiobooks. So I was really pleased with how it turned out.
yeah, it's like a lecture or something. If the voice is just droning on, it's like I gotta go. I just not enough caffeine in the world to get me through this.
Yeah,
Um,
but it's great because other books are now coming out on audio, and I think
it,
that's a more accessible thing for a lot of people because you can just sit and listen to a book. It's not something because I used to feel bad when people told me, "Oh, I bought all your books." Like you don't carry them around, do you? Because they weigh
yeah,
6 pounds.
yes, you right, and you're in it for it. But you do not skimp on plots or any character development, none of it. So you are in
No,
for a treat, folks.
yeah,
And
you
I
can use
just
them as a weapon.
yes, that's what I liked about a couple of mine. You could beat someone up with it. Yeah.
Yep.
And I just want to remind everyone, well, click, like, subscribe, visit the gift shop, all that fun stuff. But the links for Melissa's stuff is going to be down below. Her publisher, Flashpoint Publications, and the audio I also added in the Mayor Wolf page. So that'll all be down below. So if you need to reach out and buy Melissa's books, which you can now do digitally, because this is the world we live in, you can. All right, now partners. I am not familiar with this series. Uh, because we have the whole Dar and Kerry, it's like 13 some odd books, but Partners is 3 books, and this is more into your sci-fi roots, I'm guessing.
Because I've always been a science fiction fan. I mean, I've read a lot of science fiction. I used to read through the science fiction sections in the school library and then in the local library where I was living, and then I would go to the bookstores when there still were bookstores and buy all the new science fiction books. So for me, it was very interesting to then have something where I would have to world build, right?
Yeah,
So you
so
you have to
very
make everything
Philip
up from
Dick
scratch.
and
Yeah,
Asimov and
you
all.
have to if you're doing something like that, especially if it's like post-apocalyptic, you have to be able to like build out that world. Like, what is that? How does that work? How do they do what they need to do to live in this circumstance where they have so many challenges? So I enjoy writing those characters a whole lot. I mean, I enjoy writing all the characters to be honest. For me, um, writing for me has never been something that I did for any particular reason.
Right.
So it's because it's something I do for my own entertainment. And
And
even when
and
I started posting the stories out in there, it still was for my entertainment. I remember submitting stories to Tom's page. I don't know if you remember Tom's
I don't
page.
know what it is,
That was
but
the very one of the very first repositories of a lot of fiction, fan fiction, and that's where my stuff was hosted first, and before I got my own website, and it still was for my entertainment. It's always
right,
been my entertainment. I enjoy writing these things. I enjoy the process of writing these things. It's like checking in with people that like what's going on in
right,
their life now and finding out what's going on in their life and seeing where that leads you in terms of it. So that's actually been it's always been more for me than it's really been for everybody else. And if other people also like it, that's great and it's a bonus. Um,
absolutely. Yeah, I remember it following online. There was, like you said, your website, and it was a whole new world because you. I remember I was at a conference with you, and we had a side meeting with writers, and I had mentioned that I was told by then a big publisher that I you couldn't mix mystery and romance. And I remember how hard you laughed at that. You thought that was funny. It's ridiculous. You can't
you,
mix
you
those.
there's like now that there's like a trope now that where
Yeah.
people are especially doing their stories and they're designed to go for this particular audience, that particular audience. And I think mostly it's like, well, how do you classify your books? I'm like, I don't classify them. They're stories about people's lives.
Yeah, I've got these
They
characters,
are.
they do that. And,
That they're two women that live together. Okay. But honestly, that is not really ever the focus.
right. That's what I like. It's not a coming out story. It's just, and I'm seeing that more and more. It's we don't have to do that. I mean,
Don't have to
my
do that.
early work was about that, but it's now like Matt Converse. He writes a little on the horror side.
Mhm.
Lead characters are gay men, but it's not like, and that's who they are. That's
It's
just how
just
the
who they
story goes.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really that's how I've always felt when I've been writing this too, is that I try not to make that a focal point. Does it become a challenge? Do you get challenged for that, especially in Dar Kerry's world? Is there, do you have to face some discrimination and stuff like that? I think
Yeah.
everybody understands that that happens in the world, and if they didn't, it would be extremely unusual if they
Right.
didn't. So, right, because we all do. So yes, they have to deal with that, but it is just sort of something that they have to deal with, just like the weather, the summers in Florida are, a
Oh,
disaster. And
swampy.
if it's not a swamp, it's, a hurricane. Instead, if it's a disaster,
Yeah.
it's just something you have to deal with, and that's just a facet of their lives together that they have to deal with.
And it's interesting because, especially these days, it's more and more of what we have to deal with. And I think when we go back to why shows like Xena and Buffy were so popular, is that they were more of like, well, who gives a crap, if this is what is going on. I mean, I do recall the first time I caught on to what was going on in Xena. I'm like, wait a minute, they're not just really good friends.
That
Oh,
was very unique about Rob because he could have easily backed away from it.
yep.
Because that brought a lot of contention. I mean, I don't know whether you remember what the fan fights were when the net forum was around,
Oh,
where you had the people,
craziness.
this group is fighting this group, and people are yelling and screaming and everything else. Um, he could have backed away from it. He could have just taken it in a completely different direction. He just chose not to,
Yeah.
which I always thought was really interesting. I think he had some writers there who were, yeah, let's play with this. Let's see what we can do. Let's not be totally like crazy
Yeah.
because
I mean, he had some really talented
yeah,
writers. Speaking of, you wrote for the show,
I
one
did.
or two episodes, two
I wrote
episodes, right?
Mhm.
So that's, I think one, I think Rob Tapert's a brilliant guy. I mean, how else do you get Lucy Lawless to marry you? Honestly, dude. He knew his
Not only
audience.
yes, he knows his audience. He's not only a talented guy, but he's also a very nice person, which don't always go together, you know.
Right, right,
But having to deal with that, it was a terribly uncomfortable situation for his whole team, probably. When he came in and said, "I'm going to pick a fan out and we're going to have him write an episode." I can just imagine the reaction of the team
Oh, I'm sure.
because I can, as somebody who's a manager, if somebody comes in, we're going to bring somebody off the street to try to do your job. It's like, kind of one of these things. So I think it was really great that he took the chance. I think it was a unique experience, and I enjoyed it a lot. It was a great fun to get to meet people and get to see the process from the inside.
Right,
You get to, from the plus and the negative side, right? You get to be part of that world, but on the other side, you get to see the making of the sausage.
right, right. And like I said, he was brilliant, but I never doubted that he was a decent human being either,
Mhm.
because he really tried to focus in different shows too, Spartacus and other ones, that on trying to
All
make
about
us better people, which I think we need more of right now.
it's tough times right now. I don't,
It really is.
it's
And
rough.
it is. And this is one of the reasons I wanted to start doing this, is because we're all in this together and our books are being banned in record numbers. There you go. And I'm sure there's a barbecue or two going on as well. Um,
I don't, um, that's so silly.
yeah, it is.
As though preventing people from reading about something is going to prevent them from understanding what or who they are.
Right. It's like it's not going. What did Harvey Milk said? If having a straight mom and dad and all that was such a good
Um,
example, there would be a lot more priests and nuns and heterosexuals running around. That's
it,
not the
it
way it
just
works.
it just doesn't matter because I don't people are so short-sighted,
Yes.
right? Because if it what you're doing, you say, okay, I don't want any kids to get any ideas in their head, you know, ever. Okay, so when they go through puberty and they become teenagers and they start having sexual feelings, what are they going to do?
No, I
Because
just
it's not like, oh gosh, I passed a bookstore and look, here's a book, and oh my God, I'm gay. It's not, that's not how that works.
trust me. Ruby Fruit Jungle did not turn me gay. I was already gay.
That's what I'm saying it's something you realize when you fall in love with somebody who happens to be the
Mhm.
same sex as you are. And you can't stop that from happening.
And growing up in the
That's a human
years that
reaction.
we grew up in, it wasn't out there. It wasn't in the media. It was, and it was more of just don't talk about it. It's like, oh, fuck you. Here you go. I'm talking about it.
It's been something that's been around for hundreds and thousands of years. So it's
Yes.
not anything that's new, but I think what's new is that people
Excuse
display
me.
it. And I think that if you are extremely conservative and you are, that is offensive to you, that it becomes like almost like a horror story for you. It's like, what if my kid sees two women holding hands? How am I
Heavens.
going to explain that? Like, if you have a 5-year-old kid, do you think the 5-year-old kid is going to care if two women are holding hands?
No.
They're going to come and ask mom something? Yeah. So I think it's foolish. I think it's exhausting because you go through this cyclical thing. Like one thing it becomes accepted and then it doesn't become accepted. Then it becomes
Right.
accepted. It doesn't, it just gets exhausting after a
It
while.
really is.
And you hope like, is this really the time when we're finally going to be coming on the upslide and then there's just no downside? I
Yeah.
don't know if I see that.
Is
Yeah.
this what look, I understand that there's hills we don't want to die about, but I think the books over the centuries, and I look growing up in Boston and I look at books that were banned there, and that was like a badge of honor. But you start banning books, and they're banning like To Kill a Mockingbird. What in the name of God is, or whatever, is in a
You're
To Kill
banning
a
Teletubbies.
Mockingbird that you find offensive? You know,
Do you remember the whole thing about the Teletubbies? Because one
oh,
of
don't
them,
ask, don't tell a tubby. I had a T-shirt. I made T-shirts that said that.
I think who I feel bad for is the kids that are being affected by this.
Yes.
And eventually those kids who are kids are going to grow up and become adults,
Hmm.
and they're going to have to deal with whatever it is that they turn out to be. And if all they've heard all their life is horrible things about that,
About
what's going to
homeless,
happen? What's going to
homeless.
happen if they come to the realization that, oh my goodness, then what's a kid going to do?
It's back to suicides and yeah, I don't know. So yeah, and I always said if you're offended by way someone self-identifies, if you're looking at them and you feel that they're not a man or are not a woman, it's none of your freaking business if that they want to be identified that way. Why do
Move
you
on.
care?
Move
And if
on. Walk
and
on.
and if my books upset you, don't read them.
Don't read them.
Don't read them. They're pretty
That's what
clear.
I was just like, listen, if you don't like the stuff that I write, great. That's fine. Don't read it. Move on. And the internet is full of stuff to read.
Oh my God, right? And now that we can order books with
Full
a
of stuff
step,
to read.
oh, yeah, right? Lots. I never, this digital age is great and addicting. It's like, oh, well, I liked that. So now I have to read the next book by this person.
Everybody who writes a story is going to find an audience for it.
Hmm.
Even if the audience is only one person, that story is going to touch someone.
I think in many ways, I think it's awesome. And I've always felt this way myself that you're right. I'm telling a story. I'm not necessarily thinking of who's going to read this, who, this is what happened. I have post-apocalyptic work partners or Dar Kerry trying to save the world where things explode and they're chasing down the bad guys. So, for so much fun.
This is just what happens. And there are some people that are going to enjoy it, and there's
Yeah.
some people that are not going to enjoy it. And there's some people that are going to think it's an abomination, although it's hard to classify. Like I was having a conversation with the folks that run the Academy of Bards, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Is hosted on my server. Right? And sometimes our server IP gets blocked.
Oh,
It gets put on a porn list. It gets
oh,
blocked. And I know 100% for sure that's not from my stuff. It's from the stuff that we host on the Academy of Bards because they have a much broader range of
yeah.
stories
I
that are,
don't know who would be posting stuff that's overly tantalizing on the Academy Bards. Who would do such a thing?
yeah, but some people do. So a lot of times the IP that we share, that's my server IP, I have a virtual server in the cloud, gets blocked because of that. And we were talking the other day. I was like, well, what's going to happen if that starts to get outlawed?
Yeah.
Okay, so do I have a backup plan? Have I identified a server hosting service in Europe? All those things. Yes, of course. I
Wow.
did. It would be silly and a shame, but I said, probably there's larger targets, so they'll be the canaries.
Right.
We're talking AO3 fanfiction.net. I mean, there's some places that actually will probably get targeted before we will, but is this possibly going to happen? It is
Oh yeah.
possible.
Yeah. It's definitely. I mean, and everyone's like, oh, yeah. Well, pay attention. This is what's
Pay
going on.
attention.
Yeah.
Pay attention. You don't have to take immediate action, but think about it in the back of your head is what is your plan B?
Yeah.
Because in IT, you always have to have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, a plan E, and a plan F, plan G.
I'm so impressed. I'm lucky I can get my computer on half the time. But you remember, my background is was in theater and making drinks. These are my skill sets. You want a
My
margarita or
my college degree is actually in technical theater. I have a
oh,
bachelor of
okay.
arts in technical theater for lighting design.
I loved you guys. Oh, crawl up there. I'm just gonna. I can hit my mark. I'll be over
Yep.
here.
So yeah, but it's a technical thing. So I have a technical aptitude, and that sort of morphed into computers, and here I am.
Yeah, that's my college roommate. She was oh yeah, have fun climbing up in those crawl
In the
spaces and on the
ridges.
catwalks, and
Yeah, yeah.
I'll stand here and look pretty.
Running spotlights. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna go chain smoke now. Bye. Which I no longer do, just so we're clear. God, I miss that. I didn't realize you started in technical theater, but this is your skill set, and you got to pay attention to what's going on. And remember, shows, would be outraged, and if you wanted to do this and that, it's like, oh my God, then don't go to see it. Don't watch it. Just shut it off. Change the channel.
The
Tell other
latest thing that
people.
people are talking about that is about the new movie Wicked, because that
Oh,
came out and all of a sudden that got flooded around because, what relationship do these two women actually have? That now that blew up, and people are, oh, I'm not going to let my kids see that. It's like, okay, don't let them.
then don't. Okay. Your call.
They'll miss a good movie.
Yeah.
It's a great stage play. Have you seen it on Broadway? It's amazing.
No, I haven't seen it. I'm waiting for it to start streaming. The Grand Munchkin went to see it. She's 9 and she has her favorite musicals. I love that about her. She also swings from
It's a gorgeous musical.
yeah, we can't wait to see it. And but every time I went to get tickets and stuff, it's like, oh, okay, other life events were happening, like moving cross country and stuff.
That's, got to take care of your house first.
Well, yeah, yeah, and as you know, our house sometimes is bigger, and it's not. Well, yeah, that's in our senior years. Let's take in small children. Yay, that was fun. It is fun.
Yeah, but
Uh,
bless you for sharing, you know?
oh, there's a need, and it's definitely a need, and there's definitely a need. So, but do you find that like these events are like inspire you to with storylines?
Which event?
Any of them, any like what's going on in the world, kids.
I will tell you something. It's sometimes it's a little scary for me when I write because sometimes I write in a direction and I find all of a sudden that the world is taking on whatever story it is that I'm writing.
Right, and that is scary.
It is scary. I've had to stop two stories in the past, just dead, just stop them dead because all of a sudden the real world became what it was that I was writing about. And I couldn't because it had to do with my work and that sort of thing. So I was like, okay, I can't write this because my name is on it. I publish under my real name. So
Yes, you do.
I can't really do this because it's proprietary secrets for this company that I'm working for. So I have to shut up and I have to take this story in a completely different direction. Just like all of a sudden it just goes off stage right, off stage left. Um, and that's a very disconcerting feeling. So when you're writing in times like this, it's almost a little afraid to write because I don't really want to write anything into reality.
Well, that must make it extremely difficult, given what you do.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's okay if you're going to you write about something in the past. Like
right.
I did a whole story about 9/11, but that was a number of years in the past when I did that. So then, that was fine. I knew that I was not going to cause any problems there. But right now we're in a very touchy time and I don't know that I would want to write a story that had to do with what's going on today.
It's almost like they always like for years they never made a movie about The Stand, Stephen King's The Stand, and everyone was like it's because AIDS happened, you know, because all of a sudden it was real.
Yes, that's exactly what that feels like.
Yeah. Well, what does the future hold? What can the readers look forward to? Do you have anything in the works?
I think I have another two partners books, one partner book, a
Awesome.
partner book splitting in two. The next version, the next section of the partners is coming out. So that'll actually be two books that are coming out, and then something new from Dar Kerry
Oh,
to
wow.
figure out
That's
what they're doing now that they've lived through a hurricane and bought a house and
what else?
had all kinds of weird stuff happen to them. So yeah, no, there'll definitely be more books.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I like part two is because your books are that long that they often get split.
Yes, because you really
Yes.
can't put out an 800-page book.
No,
Yeah,
no. George Martin did it.
no, you really,
He still owes me an ending, in my opinion.
yeah, and also, well, they take a long time to write,
Yes, and you actually have a job.
and I have a day job. Yeah,
You have a day job. Wow. Any advice to up and coming authors?
just write,
Nice to tell your story.
just write from your heart. That really is. I know there's a big temptation to like find a niche audience and like try to craft your stories for the niche audience.
Yeah,
And that could work for some people. And I think it does, that's certainly, if that's what people want to do, they can. But I think for your own personal growth and benefit, just right.
that's great advice, and excited to hear there are more books coming. Okay, again, the links are listed down below. We're running a little short of time. Thank you so much, Melissa, for joining us, and
No
bye,
problem.
folks. And